with the question, is public shaming an effective and ethical means for deterring future crimes and punishing criminals? We would like to state that it is not, and then we have 5 points on why it would not be ethical, and then we will list, or we have 4 points, and then we will list a counter argument that would have to be addressed. And so we wanted to look at this from a utilitarian perspective, and with utilitarianism, you look at the net pleasure versus the net pain. And so there's at least 4 factors to look at here, like the duration of pleasure, the intensity of pleasure, the likelihood that there will be pleasure, and then the fruition of pleasure. And so we wanted to begin with the duration of pleasure. All right, and to show that it's short term.
Sure. So there are numerous psychological theories that talk about when a person does something wrong or that they feel is wrong, they can either feel guilty about it or they can feel shameful for it. And if they feel guilty, they're likely to be motivated to change, but if they feel shameful, they're likely to accept that identity as a deviant and continue to behave in that manner. And so if we're publicly shaming people, we're promoting that feeling of shame, and we're causing people to identify as deviants, which will cause them to commit deviant behavior more likely in the future. So this would mean that the pleasure produced by removing a criminal is going to have a very short duration, because it'll only last while they're being watched and while they're being publicly shamed, because afterwards they'll begin to identify and then they'll go back into their criminal behavior.
And with the duration, you'd have to look also too at the label. Like if you label someone, as some of these examples are of public shaming, like where they wear a sign and they go around. Do we really want to cause like a lifetime of pain? Because if someone labels themselves as a murderer or as a stealer or as a fornicator or something like that, the duration of pain could last a lifetime, which would not be equal to the crime. And so the second point we wanted to look at was the intensity of pleasure that can be created by this. And so ultimately, a system of law and a system of punishment would want to increase the net pleasure for all people, and the most intense net pleasure, and the most pleasure that we get, as shown by much of our literature, is when someone who was bad and was doing wrong acts against society changes, not just doesn't do it again, but changes as a person, and goes out and to help other people. And so if we wanted to have the most intense pleasure, we would look at how can we help this person who's committed a wrong act to change and to increase his pleasure and everybody's pleasure. And so with public shaming, it is not likely that these people will be changed, because all they're doing is going around and being shown for a mistake that they made, and that's not the highest form of change. And so that's the third point that we'd like to look at is the likelihood, and what shows whether the likelihood that this will increase pleasure or the likelihood that it won't.
Yeah, so the likelihood is a similar issue with the duration thing, because again, when people are shamed for their deviance, they begin to accept that deviance. And so public shaming doesn't have a high likelihood of producing pleasure or reducing pain, but it does have a high likelihood of increasing pain because the person is out there in public feeling bad for what they've done. So this also wouldn't be a very utilitarian thing to do for that reason.
Yeah. And so point number 4 is we're looking at the fruition. So if we're really looking at the net utility, we want this system to show that it works. And so far, public shaming does not have a very good track record, whereas other programs such as educational programs for inmates, or like really working with them with counseling and different things, could have a much more likelihood of actually happening. So those are the 4 reasons of support in it. That the duration is short term, and that's why it's not effective. Its intensity and pleasure potential is low. It doesn't have a great likelihood, and the fruition from it, from actual experience, is low. And so some counter arguments that could be made to this is that we should treat criminals like this to be an example, so that we could show like this is a person that has done wrong and he's done bad things, and this is what we do with bad things in America because we're a just society. The issue with this is that it's very short-lived. Because do we want to show that something is wrong, or do we want to show that something is right? And so the better thing, rather than showing that this is a mistake people made, what if we had public praising of criminals that change, that criminals that are successful? Because in the end, we want to increase the pleasure, and so we want to show that people can change and people can be better as a society. And so that will help with the duration, intensity, likelihood, and fruition of it.
And I think another counter argument could be like the overall effect that it has on society. If everybody's focusing on the negative just in how they see other people and in how they see themselves. Because then if you're like, well, that person got caught for that, well, if I get caught for that, then everybody will have a negative view on me. And that could, and that goes with what he was talking about with the short-lived deterrence on other crimes. But the overall effect of negativity that it has on the entire population of the society could be more negative, and it would bring down a whole society's pleasure.
Yeah, because psychologically, would you want someone to not hurt somebody because they're afraid of being shown out in public for it, or would you want someone to choose to not do something because they're a good person, because they want to change, or because they want to be good? And so that's the difference that we're looking at. The greatest net utility will be achieved by creating a people that can continue to produce good results, rather than in the short term deterring people from being their worst selves. And with nothing else, we see the time.